The holidays are fast approaching and we are going to quickly whip up some 3-ingredient appetizers for the freezer so that you'll have them on hand for when you've got guests over the holiday season or when you get invited to something. You can easily just grab it out of the freezer and bring it with you. Some of these can be eaten just as is. Other ones, you're gonna wanna pop them in the oven on the day you go to make them. Either way, these are so fantastic. One of the things we're gonna do today to make it so that you save even more money and time is we're gonna make multiple recipes using similar ingredients. That saves you time because you're just taking those ingredients out one time when we make them today. And it saves you money because you can use the entire package of something instead of just using a partial package. It's gonna be really easy to get these done. We are going to do all of this. I have a list of what we're doing and we're going to get this entire list done in, I'm sure, under an hour, which is great because we're gonna have so much variety in our freezer and one less thing to think about this holiday season. The first thing that we're going to do is we're gonna open a can or two of whole water chestnuts. We're gonna drain those and then right in the can, we're gonna add some soy sauce and let those soak because later, we're gonna wrap those in some bacon. We're just gonna cut the bacon in thirds. We're gonna wrap that in bacon and put them on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet, get them in the freezer. Once they're frozen, we'll transfer them into a freezer bag and one appetizer will be already done. And those 3 ingredients were bacon, soy sauce, and water chestnuts. Once we've got that soy sauce soaking in those water chestnuts, we're gonna get started on our next recipe. Next, we're gonna make some blue cheese stuffed bacon wrapped dates. These are also called Devils on Horseback. You may have seen them at restaurants. They are so easy to make and they can be made ahead and frozen. Now we're also gonna be using our dates for another recipe today. So I am gonna go ahead and slice a whole bunch of them, more than what we're gonna make just in this recipe here. Because if we've got them out and got our knife out, we're gonna save time by slicing them all up at one time. For our bacon, we can either cut it in half or in thirds. Because I'm wanting to stretch a dollar and get as many things made as I can, I'm gonna cut ours in thirds. It's sometimes a little bit harder to wrap them if the bacon is in thirds, but it still works just fine. I find that using kitchen scissors is the fastest way to do this. And just like those bacon wrapped water chestnuts, we are going to lay these on a parchment covered baking sheet and then we're gonna wrap them, freeze them. Once they're frozen, we'll transfer them into freezer bags. The reason that we're doing this is so that they don't stick together in the freezer. That'll make it so that on the day of, if you want to cook up the whole thing, go ahead and like dump them onto a baking sheet, put them in the oven. But if you're having a smaller crowd or if you're making a lot of appetizers at once, you might want to grab a handful of the bacon wrapped blue cheese stuffed dates, a handful of the bacon wrapped water chestnuts, and then you can have a variety to serve. And that way you can leave what's left frozen in your freezer. They're not going to stick together. It's just a lot easier to use. For the extra dates that we've sliced up, we're going to be using them a little bit later when we pull out our goat cheese because, yes, you guessed it, goat cheese is going in more than one recipe. So once we're working with the goat cheese, we'll pull those out again, get those stuffed, and those have a nice little holiday twist, which you'll see when we get there. So let's get these done and put in the freezer and we'll move on to our next appetizer. For these next appetizers, we're gonna be using some mini cocktail sausages. You can buy these at Costco or at your local grocery store. I wait until they go on sale and then I buy them and freeze them just in the package as is. I also do that with bacon. Bacon is one of those things that can be really expensive. When you find it on sale, you can only really use up like 1 or 2 packages in a week, so you don't really get to take advantage of the sale. What I do is when I see a super great price on bacon, I buy a whole bunch, come home and just toss them in my freezer. I actually have a little thing in the door of my freezer where they fit perfectly down there. I just throw them down there, and then whenever I need bacon for a recipe, I take it out, thaw it. Today, actually, I threw a couple packs of bacon and a couple packs of the cocktail sausages in a sink full of room temperature water. That way they could thaw as we got things started, and then when I needed to use them, they'd be thawed enough. So these cocktail sausages, we're gonna do 2 things with them. The first one is, growing up, every Christmas Eve we call them mini hot dogs, same thing, cocktail sausages in maple syrup. That's it. You just put them in a little stovetop pot or a mini crock pot. You boil them up or cook them up, simmer them in the maple syrup. They are sticky, ooey gooey goodness, and for me it's just holiday tradition to have them every year. My kids grew up having them, I grew up having them. Now my brother was allergic to pork, so what we did after we discovered his allergy is we cut up all beef hot dogs into little tiny segments so they were about the same size as cocktail sausages, and then we cooked those up in maple syrup. Either way, super easy, 2 ingredient appetizer. What we're gonna do today is we're just gonna throw these into the bag, put some maple syrup in there, get our air out, seal it, freeze it. You might be wondering, like, why bother? Because on the day of, you could just take out your cocktail sausages, thaw them, put some maple syrup in the pot with them, and it would be super easy to do. The thing is though, then I would have to make sure that I have maple syrup in the house. I would have to think ahead, and this is just gonna be so much easier. Everything is all together, and if I go to take this to someone else's house, I can just grab the whole thing, take it with me, and cook it up there. So it's just one less thing to think about. It's not a big deal. Like I said, it's 2 ingredients. It's not really a big deal, but I just love the whole mental load being gone. That's why I make as much ahead as humanly possible. Thus, Freezer Meals 101. Done. Now for our other package of cocktail sausages, what we're gonna do, this is a new recipe to me, but sounds like it should work and be super kid friendly. So we're going to take our bacon that's cut in thirds, we're gonna wrap it around the sausage, and then we're gonna just sprinkle a little teeny tiny bit of brown sugar on top. We are again going to freeze these flat in a single layer on a baking sheet. Get those in the freezer. Once they're fully frozen, we will transfer them into our freezer bag, and we can bake these up on the day of. I think they're gonna be a super big hit with adults and kids alike. We're gonna move on to our goat cheese. This first one is one that I like to have in my freezer, honestly, year round. As soon as I run out of this one, I like to make more because they are just so easy to grab if you get invited to go to something. You don't have to bake them, you don't have to do anything with them. You just pop them onto a plate and people eat them. Even if they're frozen, by the time you get to where you're going, they're thawed enough that they're edible. This is just taking those dates that we sliced in half already. We're gonna stuff them with some goat cheese. I got mine at Costco. So you get 2 goat cheese logs, and I'm able to use a lot of that today, or maybe even all of it today. We'll see how much the recipe after this takes of the goat cheese, but you're gonna stuff these with goat cheese, and then we're just gonna like roll the open end into some crushed pistachios. With the little pop of green from the pistachios, I feel like they're a nice holiday thing, but because it's goat cheese, these are great for people who have issues with cow's milk. These are healthy because it's got the pistachios, so it's got the protein, it's got the date, it's got the goat cheese, so it feels fresh, and it's just something really different. Whereas usually with the appetizers, as you've already seen in this video, you get a lot of like the bacon wrapped things and the cheese things and like the heavier things. And we're moving on to meatballs in a bit, spoiler alert. So yes, those are all like heavier things. And these just feel like a burst of freshness in your mouth, quite honestly. And then you also get good textures because you've got the crunch from the pistachios. So even though these are only 3 ingredients, trust me, they are one of those like impress your guests appetizers, and you're gonna wanna give these a try. This next goat cheese one is a total experiment. No idea if it's going to be good or not. I'm actually a little bit suspicious, I'll tell you. Because what we're gonna do, I found this on the internet, and you know how that can be. If you go to freezermeals101.com, you're pretty sure the recipes there are gonna be good. I mean, obviously I'm not impartial here, but they are tested and tried and true, you know. Elsewhere on the internet, there are some sites that have amazing recipes, but I have also had some real fails over the years. So we'll see. The reason I'm suspicious about this one is they're like little goat cheese balls, but it's just using the goat cheese. When I've made goat cheese balls in the past, I've always mixed them with some cream cheese because I find that goat cheese can be quite crumbly. So we'll see what happens with these. The recipe is that you mix goat cheese with some dried cranberries. Now, again, I'm suspicious of this because I feel like the dried cranberries are gonna make them fall apart even more than they already would. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cut my cranberries so that they're finer and less likely to cause the whole thing just to crumble and fall apart. Then we're gonna scoop these into balls once those things are mixed together, and we're gonna roll them in our pistachios. So this is another use for our goat cheese, which we had anyway, and our pistachios, which we had to go ahead and crushed for the goat cheese stuffed dates. So this is a really good way to use up the ingredients we have left. And if it ends up being a fail, then at least it's with ingredients that I had anyway and had to prep anyway, and I won't feel like it's that big of a deal. I think it's worth a shot because this is such like a holiday thing with the red from the cranberries and the green from the pistachios, and like the blend of those flavors is gonna taste very holiday. So we'll give it a shot this year. I'll let you know how it goes. Next year they may not make it into any of the holiday appetizer videos if they end up being crumbly and a total fail. If they end up being crumbly but the flavors are good, then what I will do is I will mix the goat cheese with some cream cheese to make them bind together more and just give it a little bit of a creamier texture, and then we can play around with that. But that would be 4 ingredients, and I wanted to stay true to this 3 ingredient video. Funny story, I have this amazing recipe for, we call it fire and ice shrimp. It is like out of this world. Like, it's one of those ones where your guests will be like, can I have this recipe? And it has 4 ingredients. So I was trying to think of a way, because I am gonna make it for the holidays this year. I was trying to think of a way that I could put it in this video and still like have it be honest. I was like, well, maybe because the cocktail sausages in maple syrup are 2 ingredients, if that one's 4 ingredients, it kind of like balances out. But then I was like, no, that's not like, that's like letter of the law, not spirit of the law. Like that's not gonna work. I can't do that, and it's just not quite ethical, right? And then I was thinking, well, is there an ingredient that I could drop from that recipe? Now, tell you the whole recipe is prawns. So we just use frozen prawns. Again, we get them from Costco, and then we get them like deveined, detailed, all the things. So actually those ones, I think we keep the tail on for those. Yes, okay. So those ones are just deveined, peeled, but they have the tail on. Then we add Thai sweet chili sauce, white wine, and heavy cream. So none of those ingredients can go. Like if you make it without the white wine, it's going to be too heavy. If you make it without the cream, it's not gonna be heavy enough. And there's nothing to really cut the spice from the Thai sweet chili sauce. And of course, you can't make it without the Thai sweet chili sauce. And obviously we could not omit the prawns because then you would just have a sauce. So I really gave this some thought, as you can see, but in the end I came to the conclusion that it would not be right to put a 4-ingredient recipe in this video. So this next recipe is actually 3 ingredients, and I'm gonna go and grab the meatballs so that we can get this one started. If you're looking for more holiday appetizers, I'm gonna pop a video right up there. My neighbor Christy and I did that video recently, and it is specifically holiday appetizers, not 3-ingredient. Some of them have, you know, more than 3 ingredients, but they're still fairly easy. There's one in there, gougères, that is a little bit more involved, but it's so nice to have. And you do the work up front now so that during the holidays, you're not doing the work and you can just serve them. And those ones, you can either bake them and put them in the freezer and just, you know, take them out and serve them, which is what we did last year. Or this year, we made them without cooking them, and they're in the freezer so that when we want to serve them, we're gonna cook them up fresh and then we can serve them warm. So it'll be a little bit different this year, but that's one of them. We also have these adorable holiday cheese balls. Now those are tried and true, not like the ones we made today. And those have like the pops of the holiday color. They are just so, so cute because they're mini. So your guests can take one cheese ball and spread it on their cracker. It's really nice, you know, when you have like a buffet style meal for people to take those. So those ideas are all really, really great, and you can check that out. I will put the link to that video up there, but I will also put it in the description down below. We also have some holiday PDFs that can help make the holidays super simple, because you can make ahead your Christmas breakfast, your hot dips, your appetizers, all your holiday side dishes, and we've got something where you can make freezer meals with all your leftover turkey. So we have bundled that together into our Savor the Season packet, and you can find the link for that down below as well. Next, we are going to do meatballs. I was at Costco. I got most of these things at Costco, including the meatballs. We're gonna make 2 different types of meatballs. What I love about having these made ahead is, again, they're just 3 ingredients. So you could leave this in your freezer, and then the day of, you could put the other ingredients in there and cook them up. But when you're hosting a large gathering, which we do a few times over the holidays, you have so much to think about. There's so many things on your list, like, did I put out napkins? Did I put out plates? Did I clean the bathroom? Is there toilet paper in the bathroom? Like, you have all these things on your mind. And I don't know about you, but I always find one thing I don't account for on those days is that at the last minute, people are going to start texting you. They're gonna be like, can I get directions to your house? Or, oh, I'm sorry to let you know, but we're gonna be a little bit late. Or, is it okay if I bring this instead of this? Or, actually we can't make it. Or, can I bring my cousin's friend who's here visiting from out of town? Like, all of these things. And actually that last one is a true story, which at our house, we're always fine. Like, you want to bring extra, bring extra. We've got a huge family anyway. What's a few more people? But you always get those last minute like texts and phone calls, and I never account for that. So I'm always like just down to the wire, and I'm only gonna get it just done in time for people to arrive. And then that sets me back. So I'm always like still scrambling when people come. So having to think about, like, for this first recipe, it's just meatballs, grape jelly and chili sauce. So that party meatball recipe, it just goes in your slow cooker. You don't even have to think about it. It's like over there doing its thing while you're making the rest of things and setting out your platters, making your punch, like whatever it is you do. You don't have to think about it. But if you just had this in your freezer, which is, it's still a step in the right direction, but then you're gonna have to go and make sure that you've got grape jelly, make sure that you've got chili sauce, put them in there. You're gonna be scraping out your grape jelly, and your brain is gonna be like, oh, oh no, I forgot to check and make sure that this is done, right? So I just love having all of these things, like anything that can be done ahead. I love having it done as far ahead as I can. And I find that if I have meatballs at the party, it makes it so that you don't really have to serve a meal, because you do have all these other appetizers, all these little finger foods people can pick at, but the meatballs are more filling. So then it makes it so that you can even do it over like a supper hour or a lunch hour, and you don't feel like you have to serve a full meal as long as you have other appetizers and you've got your meatballs going. The other thing is, in our family, if there are leftover meatballs, my kids are thrilled, and the next day I can just make some rice, have the leftover meatballs, and turn it into a meal. This is win-win for me. 100% of the time that we have large gatherings, I have meatballs going in the crock pot. Never had complaints. So we'll get this first one made, and then the other one is a newer recipe to me. I've only been making it for probably the last 8 months or so, and I've already served it at 2 gatherings. It is equally as easy. This is just our barbecue beer meatballs. So we're gonna get our meatballs in the bag. We're gonna put some barbecue sauce and some beer. That's it. That's all. For this one, you do want to wait just a few seconds, not even a full minute, but for some of the bubbles to dissipate before you try to get your air out of the bag. Otherwise, you'll end up with more air in the bag than you want, and that can lead to freezer burn. So with each of these, you're just gonna seal them up once you've gotten the air out, get them in your freezer. On the day you go to cook these, they cook up in your slow cooker. They're so super easy, and they have a lot of sauce with them. So if you have rice the next day, you can spoon that onto the rice. If not, you can serve this with little toothpicks, and you can put the sauce in a bowl with a spoon if people want to have that for dipping. At the beginning of this video, when I told you that I thought that I could get this all done in under an hour, I don't know if you noticed the look on my face, but I was sort of like, I hope that I'm accurate about that, because I wasn't totally sure, even though I was using similar ingredients and they're 3-ingredient recipes. There's 8 different recipes here. So I was like, and Christy's not here today. For those of you that have watched our channel for a while, you might remember that Christy had a torn retina over a month ago, and she had to go and get the other eye lasered yesterday so that that retina doesn't tear as well, because that was starting to show signs that it was going to tear. So Christy had that surgery yesterday, and that's why I'm filming alone today. And when I'm obviously, when Christy's here, 2 sets of hands, many hands make light work, as my mom always says. So we're able to get things done literally twice as fast. With her not being here today, I was like, oh, I hope I'm not setting myself up to fail with only giving myself an hour. But looking at the clock, I have managed to get this done in 32 minutes. So I'm pretty impressed with myself, I must say. If I can do this in 32 minutes, you can too. Obviously, I'm maybe a little bit faster because I've been doing freezer meals for so long, and I'm used to putting things in bags and zipping them up and, doing all of that stuff. But you really, for sure, can get all 8 of these recipes made in under an hour, and then you will have 8 different things for the holidays that you can pull out and serve to guests. Or if you like watching Christmas movies like I do, you could also just have a cozy appetizer night with your family or with some friends. Like, snuggle up under some blankets and munch away at your appetizers while you watch the Christmas movies. Be such a nice, cozy feeling. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope these ideas help simplify the holidays for you. Happy cooking and happy holidays.